The red wine hit my shirt before her pen touched the line, and in that moment, I knew my rich white wife was about to humiliate me one last time. What she didn't know, what none of them in that courthouse conference room knew, was that I'd been hiding a secret that would flip everything upside down in the next 60 seconds. Her father called me the janitor, while her boyfriend smirked from the corner. But when the judge opened that financial disclosure, their faces went white as sheets. See, they thought they knew who Malik Carter was, a poor black man grateful for scraps from their table. But sometimes the maintenance guy fixing your boiler is actually worth more than your entire trust fund, and sometimes quiet revenge is the sweetest kind of all. What happened next changed everything, and by the time I was done, she'd be the one begging for mercy. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story of betrayal, hidden wealth, and ice-cold justice is just getting started. The red wine hit my shirt before her pen touched the line. I watched the burgundy liquid spread across the white cotton I'd pressed that morning, the same shirt I'd bought for our wedding 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I kept my face still. I'd learned that trick working construction sites where showing weakness got you eaten alive. Oops, Ava said, her voice light as air. She didn't look at me when she said it, just kept that perfect smile aimed at her lawyer like she'd dropped a napkin instead of ruining my only good shirt. Her father, Richard Whitmore, chuckled from his seat across the conference table. Butterfingers, he said, shaking his silver head. Good thing it wasn't the paperwork. Ch3ating, Ava's on and off boyfriend who somehow thought he belonged here, leaned against the wall near the door. His expensive suit probably cost more than I made in 2 months. He grinned at me like we were sharing a joke, but his eyes said something different. They said I was exactly what he expected, a janitor playing dress-up in a room where I didn't belong. We should get you cleaned up, said Ava's lawyer, Mrs. Peterson. She pulled tissues from her briefcase like she'd seen this before. Can't have wine stains in the photos. Photos? Like this was some celebration instead of the end of everything I'd built with the woman I loved. I took the tissues but didn't use them yet. The stain was already set, and we all knew it. Thank you, I said, keeping my voice level. But I think we should focus on finishing this. Of course you do, Mr. Whitmore muttered. Always in a hurry, aren't you? I looked at him then. Really looked. Richard Whitmore owned half the commercial real estate in the city. His family had money when my great-grandfather was still picking cotton. He wore that history like armor, and he'd never let me forget where I came from. I'm sorry, I said. Nothing, son. He waved his hand like he was shooing a fly. Just eager to get back to work, I'm sure. Building don't maintain themselves. Son. He'd never called me that when Ava and I were married. Back then, it was always young man, or just my name spit out like it tasted bad. Ava finally looked at me. Her blue eyes were bright with something that might have been excitement. Malik, honey, you're making a scene. Honey, she hadn't called me that in 6 months. I dabbed at the wine with the tissues, more to give my hands something to do than because it would help. I'm sitting quietly in my chair, Ava. How is that making a scene? Well, you're just, you know, she gestured vaguely at me, being dramatic about a little accident. Little accident, right. I'd worked double shifts for 2 weeks to pay for this divorce lawyer, saved every penny so I could sit in this room with some dignity, and now I looked like I'd been in a bar fight. Maybe we should take a short break, my lawyer, Mr. Davis, suggested. He was a good man, but I could see the embarrassment in his eyes. He'd taken my case because his church pastor asked him to. Charity work. No need, I said. Let's finish this. Ava signed her name with a flourish, then slid the papers across to me. The pen was heavy in my hand, gold-plated, probably worth more than my truck. That's when the voices got loud in the hallway. We all turned toward the door as footsteps approached. Judge Elena Ramirez appeared in the doorway, her black robe making her look like she meant business. Her dark eyes swept the room, taking in the wine stain on my shirt, the smirks on their faces, the tension thick enough to cut. "Is there a problem here?" she asked. Mrs. Peterson stood up quickly. "Not at all, Your Honor. Just finishing up the paperwork." I heard raised voices. "Just some excitement about getting things finalized," Mr. Whitmore said, flashing the smile that had charmed voters and business partners for 30 years. Judge Ramirez wasn't charmed. She stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. "Mr. Carter, is there anything you need to tell me?" I felt everyone's eyes on me. This was my chance to speak up, to tell her about the wine and the comments and the way they'd been treating me like hired help instead of someone whose marriage was ending. But what would that accomplish? It would just make me look weak, like I couldn't handle a little mess. "No, Your Honor, we're fine here." She studied my face for a long moment. "Are you sure? Because I want to make certain this proceeding is conducted with proper respect for all parties." "Yes, ma'am." "Good." She looked around the room again. "Because if I hear any more disruption from this conference room, there will be consequences. Am I clear?" A chorus of "Yes, Your Honor" followed her around the table. "Excellent. Now, before anyone signs anything, I need to review the financial disclosures one more time. There were some late filings that need to be read into. The record." Ava's pen stopped moving. "I thought we already covered all that." New information came to light this morning. Mr. Davis submitted an amended disclosure for Mr. Carter. Since this affects the settlement, both parties have a right to hear the details. I felt my stomach drop. I'd hoped to keep things simple, clean, just split what little we had and walk away. But my lawyer had insisted on full disclosure, even the assets I'd kept quiet about. "That's really not necessary," I said. "We can stick with the original agreement." "I'm afraid that's not how this works, Mr. Carter. Please, everyone take your seats." We settled back around the conference table like school kids called to order. Judge Ramirez pulled a file from her briefcase and opened it. "Let's start with Mrs. Carter's disclosure." She read through Ava's assets, the trust fund from her grandmother, the PR company her father had bought her for her birthday 2 years ago, the condo in Miami she'd inherited from her aunt, numbers that made my head spin. Total net worth, $2.3 million. Now, Mr. Carter's amended disclosure. She started with the basics. My salary as a maintenance supervisor at Davidson Properties, my savings account, my truck that was almost paid off. Then she kept reading. Property portfolio consisting of 4 rental units in the Riverside District, all owned free and clear. Market value approximately $1.2 million. Ava's pen clattered to the table. Investment account with Morrison Financial, current balance $450,000. Mr. Whitmore stopped smiling. Real estate development partnership in the East Side Revitalization Project, estimated value $2.1 million. Chase pushed off the wall and stood up straight. Additional holdings in municipal bonds and treasury notes, $890,000. Mrs. Peterson's mouth fell open. Savings and checking accounts totaling $340,000. The room went dead quiet. Total net worth for Mr. Malik Carter, $4.98 million. You could have heard a pin drop, hell. You could have heard a feather land on carpet. Judge Ramirez closed the file and looked around the table. Now that we have accurate financial information for both parties, we can proceed with fair division of assets, unless anyone has questions. Nobody had questions. They were all too busy trying to remember how to breathe. I sat perfectly still, watching their faces change. The smugness melted away like ice cream on hot concrete. Ava's perfect composure cracked around the edges. Her father's confident smile turned into something that looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. Chase was the first to move. He stepped toward the door like he might need to run. Ava found her voice first. "That That can't be right. I assure you, Mrs. Carter, all documentation has been verified. Mr. Carter provided bank statements, property deeds, and investment records going back 5 years. But Ava looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. He works maintenance. He fixes boilers and changes light bulbs. I supervise a team of 12 maintenance workers across 6 commercial properties, I said quietly. I also invest in real estate. Apparently, I'm pretty good at it. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to acknowledge. You lied to me, Ava whispered. I never lied about anything. You never asked. You let me think. I let you think what you wanted to think. Judge Ramirez cleared her throat. If there are no further questions about the financial disclosures, we can proceed with. We need a recess, Mr. Whitmore said, standing up so fast his chair rolled backward. My daughter needs time to process this information. Of course, we'll reconvene in 1 hour. Judge Ramirez gathered her papers. But I want to remind all parties that this is a legal proceeding, not a social event. We will maintain proper decorum, or there will be sanctions. She left the room, and for 30 seconds, nobody moved. Then Ava grabbed my arm. We need to talk, she said, her voice urgent. Right now. I looked down at her manicured fingers on my shirt sleeve. 6 months ago, that touch would have made my heart race. Now it just felt cold. We can talk here, with the lawyers present. Malik, please. Her blue eyes were wide, desperate. 5 minutes, in the hallway. I gently pulled my arm free. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. This changes everything. She looked around the room at her father, Chase, her lawyer. We need to reconsider the terms. We can work something out that's better for both of us. The terms were fair when you thought I was broke. They're still fair now. But you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I understand that 5 minutes ago, you were embarrassing me in front of your family and friends, treating me like I should be grateful for whatever scraps you threw my way. And now that you know I don't need your money, suddenly you want to negotiate. Chase moved closer to the door. Smart man. Malik, honey, that's not. Don't call me honey. My voice was still calm, but something in my tone made everyone in the room take notice. Don't call me anything except my name. Mr. Whitmore stepped forward. Now see here, young man. No, sir, you see here. I turned to face him, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel like I needed to look down or step back. Your daughter can make whatever choices she wants, but she's going to live with the consequences of those choices. All of them. I picked up my copy of the divorce papers and tucked them into my jacket pocket. The wine stain had dried now, leaving a dark mark across my chest like a badge. Mr. Davis, I'll sign whatever needs to be signed, exactly as originally agreed. No changes. Malik, wait. Ava followed me toward the door. If you ever loved me, you'll give us a chance to make this right. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob and looked back at her. Really looked. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen for in that coffee shop 3 years ago. But there was something in her eyes now that I'd never seen before. Fear. Not of losing me. She'd made peace with that months ago. Fear of losing control. I did love you, Ava. More than you'll ever know. But love has to go both ways, and it has to come with respect. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving them all behind in that conference room with their shock and their silence and their suddenly useless assumptions. The courthouse hallway was long and bright, with marble floors that echoed every footstep. I walked to the window at the far end and looked out at the city below. My city. The city where I'd been born and raised and built something from nothing. Behind me, I heard the conference room door open and close, urgent whispers, footsteps moving in different directions. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister Tiana. "How'd it go? You okay?" I typed back. "Better than expected. Call you later." 5 minutes later, Ava appeared beside me at the window. She'd reapplied her lipstick and smoothed her hair, but her hands were shaking. "We need to talk," she said again. "We just did. Privately. Tonight. Please." I watched a garbage truck make its way down the street below. The crew worked with smooth efficiency, each man knowing his job, doing it well. Honest work. Necessary work. "Malik," I turned to look at her one more time. "What would we talk about, Ava?" "Us. Our future. Maybe we made a mistake." "The only mistake I made was thinking you could love someone you don't respect." Her face crumpled. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair?" Fair would have been asking me about my goals instead of assuming I didn't have any. Fair would have been introducing me to your friends as your husband instead of making excuses for what I do for a living. Fair would have been treating me like a partner instead of a charity case. I never. You did. Every day. In 1,000 little ways. I shook my head. "And the sad thing is, if you'd asked, I would have told you about the investments, the properties, all of it. But you never asked because you never thought I was worth asking." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. "Because we both knew I was right." "So no, Ava. We don't need to talk tonight or any other night. We need to sign the papers, divide our stuff, and go live our separate lives." I started walking toward the elevator, and this time she didn't follow. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I caught one last glimpse of her standing by the window, looking small and lost in the marble hallway. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Be smart, Malik. Take her offer. You won't get another chance." I stared at the message for a long moment, then blocked the number. Ch3ating could take his threats and his privilege and shove them both. The elevator reached the ground floor, and I walked out into the afternoon sunlight. My truck was parked 3 blocks away, and I needed the walk to clear my head. But as I made my way down the courthouse steps, I realized something had changed, not just in the conference room, but in me. For 3 years, I'd been carrying shame that didn't belong to me, shame about my background, my education, my job. I'd been so busy trying to prove I was worthy of Ava's love that I'd forgotten something important. I was already worthy. I had always been worthy. And if she couldn't see that, it said everything about her and nothing about me. The wine stain on my shirt was still there, dark and obvious, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel like hiding. I felt like myself again. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. 5:30, same as always. The wine-stained shirt hung on my bedroom chair like evidence of something I wasn't ready to forget yet. I made coffee, checked the weather, and tried to pretend yesterday hadn't happened. But my phone kept buzzing with notifications I wasn't ready to read. Social media tags, missed calls, text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. At 6:15, my sister Tiana called. "You awake?" she asked without saying hello. "Unfortunately." "Good. I'm bringing breakfast. We need to talk." 20 minutes later, she was standing in my kitchen with a bag of biscuits from Mickey's Diner and a look that meant business. Tiana was 2 years older than me and had been protecting me from my own good nature since we were kids. "Tell me everything," she said, unpacking food like she was planning to stay all day. So, I did. The wine, the numbers, the look on their faces when Judge Ramirez read my net worth. Ava's desperate plea in the hallway. Chase's threatening text. Tiana listened without interrupting, which should have been my first warning that she was planning something. "You blocked the number?" she asked when I finished. "First thing I did." "Good." She pulled a small notebook from her purse and slid it across my kitchen table. Now we're going to document everything else. I picked up the notebook. It was the kind kids use for school, with a black and white cover and lined pages inside. What's this for? Every slight, every insult, every time they made you feel small. Date, time, witnesses. She opened to the first page and wrote, "The wine incident" at the top. Start with yesterday and work backward. Tiana, that's not. It's necessary. Her voice had that edge it got when she'd made up her mind about something. They're going to try to control the story now. Make you out to be the bad guy who was hiding money and playing games. You need receipts. I thought about arguing, but she was right. In rooms like that courthouse conference room, truth mattered, less than who told the story better. And people like the Whitmores had been perfecting their storytelling for generations. Fine, but I'm not trying to destroy anybody. I just want this over. I know, baby brother, but sometimes the only way to end something is to make sure it can't start up again somewhere else. She stayed while I wrote down the first few entries. The wine, the janitor comments, the way Mr. Whitmore always managed to stand just a little too close, like he was trying to make me feel small. Chase's smirk when Ava introduced him as her friend, even though everyone knew better. By the time Tiana left for her shift at the hospital, I had 3 pages filled with dates and details I'd been trying to forget. At 8:30, I drove to the job site. Davidson Properties owned 6 commercial buildings around the city, and I supervised maintenance for all of them. It was good work, steady pay, decent benefits, and I'd learned enough about building systems to start investing in properties myself. My crew was already gathered in the lobby of the Riverside building when I arrived. 12 good people who showed up every day and did their jobs without drama or complaint. "Morning, boss," said Tommy, our head electrician. "How'd the lawyer thing go yesterday?" "About like you'd expect." "That bad, huh?" I almost said yes, almost fell back into the habit of making myself smaller to make other people comfortable. But something about writing in that notebook had shifted something inside me. Actually, it went better than expected. Tommy raised an eyebrow but didn't push. That was one thing I appreciated about working with people who understood hard days. They knew when to ask questions and when to let you be. We spent the morning fixing a heating problem in the basement. Nothing complicated, just a valve that needed replacing and some ductwork that had come loose. But there was something satisfying about working with my hands, solving problems that had clear solutions. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Rebecca Martinez from Channel 7 News. I was wondering if you had any comment about the divorce proceedings involving you and Ava Whitmore." I hung up without answering. The phone rang again immediately. Different number, same question. I turned the phone off. At lunch, Tommy pulled me aside. "Everything okay? You seem, I don't know, different today. Just some personal stuff getting messy." "The ex-wife?" I nodded. "Rich girl problems?" I almost laughed. "Something like that. Want some advice?" "Sure. Rich people think they own the world until they find out they don't own you." Tommy patted my shoulder. "Don't let them make you forget who you are." Who I am. For 3 years, I'd been so focused on becoming who I thought Ava wanted me to be that I'd almost forgotten. I was Malik Carter. I'd grown up in East Cleveland, worked construction to pay for night classes, saved every penny until I could buy my first rental property. I was good at fixing things, good with numbers, and good with people who didn't judge you by your address or your accent. That was enough. It had always been enough. When I got home that evening, there was a car parked outside my building. Black sedan, too expensive for my neighborhood. Through the tinted windows, I could see someone in the driver's seat, but they didn't get out when I walked past. I made dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, nothing fancy, and tried to catch up on some paperwork for my rental properties. But my mind kept wandering back to the conference room. to Ava's face when the judge read those numbers. At 7:30, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Ava standing in the hallway. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, no makeup, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked like the girl I'd fallen in love with in Maya's coffee shop 3 years ago. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can we talk, please? I thought we covered everything yesterday. Malik, please, 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her into my living room. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time, even though she'd lived here for 6 months after we got married. "You kept the photos," she said, noticing the framed pictures on my bookshelf. "Some of them." She picked up a photo from our honeymoon in Asheville, both of us grinning at the camera, mountains in the background, looking like we had all the time in the world. "We were happy then," she said. "We were. We could be again." I took the photo from her hands and set it back on the shelf. "No, we couldn't." "Why not? If money was the problem?" "Money was never the problem, Ava. Respect was the problem, and you can't buy that." She sat down on my couch without being invited. "I know I made mistakes. This isn't about mistakes. This is about who you are when you think nobody important is watching. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stayed standing, keeping distance between us. "You want to know what's not fair? Not fair was the Christmas party where you introduced me as just a friend to avoid embarrassing your boss. Not fair was the time you told your mother I was between opportunities instead of saying I had a job I was proud of. Not fair was 3 years of feeling like I had to apologize for existing in your world." She flinched like I'd hit her. "I never meant to make you feel that way. Intent doesn't matter when the impact is the same. So, that's it? You're just going to throw away everything we built together?" "What did we build, Ava? Really? A marriage where I had to pretend to be someone I wasn't? Where you loved the idea of fixing me more than you loved me?" Tears started running down her cheeks. Real ones. Not the pretty crying she did when she wanted something. "I did love you. I do love you. You loved the memory of who you thought I could become, but you never loved who I actually am." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What if I could change?" "Change what? Your family? Your friends? The way you see the world?" I shook my head. "You can't change who you are, Ava. And I'm done trying to change who I am to fit into your life." She stood up slowly, like her legs weren't quite steady. "So, we're really done?" "We've been done for months. Yesterday just made it official." She walked to the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about the wine yesterday. That was childish. Thank you. And Malik, I really am proud of what you've accomplished. With the properties and the investments. You did that all on your own, and that's incredible." It was the first genuine compliment she'd given me in months, maybe the first one ever that wasn't followed by a but or a suggestion for improvement. "Thank you," I said again. After she left, I sat on my couch for a long time, looking at that photo from Asheville. We did look happy. We were happy for a while, but happiness built on pretending to be someone else doesn't last. It can't. I picked up the notebook Tiana had given me and added a new entry. Ava's visit, 7:30 p.m. No witnesses, apology for wine incident, attempt to reconcile. Then I closed the notebook and put it away. Some things needed to be documented, but I didn't want to live in them. The next few days fell into a familiar rhythm. Work, home, paperwork, sleep. But underneath the routine, I could feel something building. The phone calls from reporters didn't stop. The car outside my building showed up 2 more times, and according to Tiana, who heard it from her friend who cleaned for the Whitmores, there were emergency family meetings happening at the townhouse. On Friday afternoon, I was replacing ceiling tiles in the lobby of our downtown building when Maya Santos walked in. She owned the coffee shop next door, and we'd been friendly neighbors for about 2 years. "Hey," she said, looking up at me on the ladder. "You okay up there?" "Just fine. What brings you by?" "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the other day." I climbed down and set my tools aside. Maya was maybe 5'6", with dark hair she usually kept in a bun, and eyes that always seemed to be laughing at some private joke. She had an easy way of talking that made everyone feel welcome in her shop. "What about the other day?" "Wednesday morning, you came in looking like someone had run over your dog. Thursday morning, you looked like you'd won the lottery." I was curious. I almost smiled. Perceptive. Occupational hazard. Coffee shop owners see a lot of before and after faces. She crossed her arms and studied me. "So, good news or bad news?" "Both, I guess." "Divorce finally go through?" I nodded. And? "And it turns out I'm worth more than my ex-wife thought I was." Maya's eyebrows went up. "How much more?" "Enough to change the conversation." She laughed. "I bet it did. Rich people hate surprises, especially the kind that make them look stupid." "You sound like you know something about rich people." "My dad cleaned offices for 30 years. He used to say the only difference between rich people and poor people is that rich people have more money to be stupid with." "Smart man." "He was." Her expression got serious for a moment, then brightened again. "So what now? You going to buy a yacht? Move to a penthouse?" "I'm going to keep fixing ceiling tiles and drinking coffee at your shop, if that's okay." "More than okay. I make better coffee than any penthouse anyway." She started to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I never understood what you saw in her." "What do you mean?" "She came in here a few times, always looked at everything like it wasn't quite good enough, including you, when you weren't looking." Maya shrugged. "You deserve better than that." After she left, I stood in that lobby for 5 minutes, thinking about what she'd said. Maya had seen it too. The way Ava looked at me when she thought I wouldn't notice, like I was a project that wasn't quite finished. That weekend, I decided to visit my rental properties. All four were in Riverside, a neighborhood that was slowly coming back to life after years of neglect. I'd bought the houses cheap, fixed them up myself, and rented them to families who needed a decent place to live at a fair price. My first stop was 847 Elm Street, where Mrs. Rodriguez lived with her 3 kids. I was checking the gutters when she came out to say hello. "Mr. Malik, how are you?" "Doing fine, Mrs. Rodriguez. How's the water pressure upstairs?" "Perfect since you fixed it last month. The kids keep asking when you're coming back to help with their math homework." I'd helped her oldest son, Carlos, with algebra a few times when I was doing repairs. The kid was smart, but struggling in school. "Tell Carlos I'll stop by next week if he wants." "You're too good to us. You pay your rent on time and take care of the place. That's all I ask." On my way back to the truck, I noticed a man across the street taking pictures. Not a real estate photographer. I knew those guys. This one had expensive equipment and was trying to look casual while he shot photos of me and Mrs. Rodriguez talking. I walked over. "Help you with something?" He lowered his camera. "Just documenting the neighborhood changes for a magazine article." "Which magazine?" Um, City Life Monthly." "Never heard of it. What's your name?" He was already backing toward a car parked at the corner. "Thanks anyway." I memorized his license plate and added it to my notebook when I got home. That evening, Tiana called with news. "Your ex-wife's been busy," she said without preamble. "How do you mean?" "Remember my friend Jessica who cleans for the Whitmores?" "Yeah." "She heard a whole family meeting yesterday. Lots of shouting about damage control and managing the narrative. Apparently, Some blogger posted about a mysterious divorce where hidden wealth came to light. They didn't use names, did they? No, but Jessica said Mr. Whitmore was talking about hiring a private investigator to find dirt on you. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What kind of dirt? I don't know. But Malik, they're not planning to play fair. After I hung up, I sat on my couch and thought about what Tommy had said. Rich people think they own the world until they find out they don't own you. The problem was, they hadn't figured that out yet. And until they did, this was going to get worse before it got better. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found what I was looking for. Jerome Williams was a private investigator I'd hired once to check out a contractor who'd been overcharging my tenants for repairs. He was thorough, discreet, and honest. Jerome, it's Malik Carter. I need to hire you again. What's the situation? Someone's investigating me. I want to know who, why, and what they're looking for. How soon do you need answers? Yesterday would be good. He laughed. I'll see what I can do. This related to your divorce? Everything's related to my divorce these days. Rich ex-wife? Rich ex-wife with a powerful family who doesn't like surprises. Got it. I'll be in touch. After I hung up, I made myself a simple dinner and tried to watch TV. But my mind kept going back to the conference room, to the moment when everything changed. Not just for me, but for all of them. For 3 years, they'd treated me like background scenery in Ava's life, the blue-collar husband she was slumming with until something better came along. They'd made jokes about my job, my neighborhood, my family. They'd made me feel grateful to be tolerated in their world. But now the power dynamic had shifted. Now, I wasn't the poor boy who'd gotten lucky. I was the man who'd been building something real while they were playing games with inherited money. And that scared them. Because if I could do what I'd done, starting with nothing, building wealth through hard work and smart choices, it meant their advantages weren't as valuable as they'd thought. It meant they weren't as special as they'd believed. That's why they couldn't just let this go. It wasn't about Ava or the divorce or even the money. It was about proving that people like me didn't belong in their world even when we earned our way in. But here's what they didn't understand. I'd never wanted to belong in their world anyway. I just wanted them to respect mine. Now I was going to make sure they did. Jerome called me Monday morning while I was drinking coffee and reading through work orders for the week. Got some news for you, he said. Good news and bad news. Hit me with the bad first. They hired Blackstone Investigations, high-end outfit that specializes in digging up dirt on people in divorce cases. They've been following you for 5 days. I thought about the expensive car outside my building, the photographer at Mrs. Rodriguez's house. What are they looking for? The usual. Financial irregularities, secret accounts, anything that makes you look like you've been hiding assets or living beyond your means. They're also digging into your background, criminal history, employment records, personal relationships. And the good news? They're not finding anything because there's nothing to find. Your finances are clean, your properties are legitimate, and your business dealings are all above board. Plus, the guy they hired to tail you is lazy and obvious. I got pictures of him taking pictures of you. I almost smiled. So, they're wasting their money. Pretty much. But Malik, this is just the beginning. When they can't find dirt, they're going to try to create some. What do you mean? Setups, provocations, situations designed to make you look bad or lose your temper. Rich people with good lawyers are very creative when they want to destroy someone. After Jerome hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about what he'd said. They were coming after me, and they were going to keep coming until they found something they could use, or I gave them a reason to stop. Fine. Let them come. I went to work and threw myself into the Monday routine. There was a plumbing emergency at the Riverside building, a burst pipe that had flooded the basement, and it took most of the day to get it fixed and cleaned up. Physical work was good for my head. It gave me something concrete to solve while I figured out how to handle everything else. Around 3 o'clock, Tommy pulled me aside. Boss, you got a visitor upstairs. Says she's from the city housing department. I found a woman in a cheap suit standing in the lobby, holding a clipboard and looking around like she was taking inventory. She was maybe 40, with short gray hair and the kind of tired expression that came from dealing with bureaucracy all day. Mr. Carter, I'm Sharon Mills from Housing Code Enforcement. We've received some complaints about safety violations in your rental properties. What kind of violations? She consulted her clipboard. Faulty wiring, inadequate heating, possible foundation issues. We need to schedule inspections for all 4 properties this week. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Who filed the complaints? Anonymous tip line. We're required to follow up. Of course. When do you want to do the inspections? How about tomorrow morning, starting with 847 Elm Street, Mrs. Rodriguez's house, the one where the photographer had been taking pictures. Fine, I'll meet you there at 9. After she left, I called Jerome. They're going after my rental properties, I told him. Anonymous complaints to the housing department. Smart. If they can get your properties condemned or tied up in violations, it hurts your net worth and makes you look like a slumlord. The houses are in perfect condition. I know that, and you know that. But inspectors can find problems anywhere if they're motivated to look hard enough. So, what do? Document everything. Take pictures before they arrive, have witnesses present, and don't give them any excuse to manufacture problems. That evening, I drove to all 4 properties and took detailed photos of every room, every system, every potential issue. The houses were solid. I'd put money and time into making sure they were safe, clean, and comfortable. But I'd learned enough about power to know that facts didn't always matter when someone wanted to hurt you. Tuesday morning, I met Sharon Mills at Mrs. Rodriguez's front door. She had 2 assistants with her, plus a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as an observer from the community outreach program. The observer looked familiar. I'd seen him somewhere before, but I couldn't place where. The inspection took 3 hours. They checked every outlet, every pipe, every floorboard. They measured clearances around the water heater. They tested smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. They examined the foundation with flashlights and magnifying glasses. Mrs. Rodriguez followed them around looking worried. Is everything okay, Mr. Malik? Everything's fine, Mrs. Rodriguez. Just routine. But it wasn't routine. They were looking for problems with the intensity of people who needed to find something wrong. When they couldn't find code violations, they started getting creative. This outlet cover is loose, one assistant said, wiggling a plate that was perfectly secure. No, it's not, I said, demonstrating that it was properly tightened. The handrail on the front steps could be considered unstable. I gripped the handrail and shook it. Rock solid. How? Well, it's a matter of interpretation. By noon, they'd found exactly nothing wrong with the house. Sharon Mills looked frustrated. The observer in the expensive suit looked annoyed. We'll need to see the other properties, Mills said. Of course. The second house was just as clean. The third house was actually better than code requirements because I'd upgraded the electrical system the year before. By the time we got to the fourth house, Mills was barely going through the motions. Everything appears to be in order, she said finally, like the words tasted bad. Thank you for your thoroughness, I said. The observer stepped forward. Actually, there is one more thing. That's when I remembered where I'd seen him. He'd been at the courthouse the day of the divorce signing, standing in the hallway, talking quietly with Mr. Whitmore. What's that? Mills asked. I'd like to schedule a follow-up inspection in 30 days, just to make sure everything stays in compliance. Mills looked confused. That's not standard procedure for a clean inspection. It's within our authority for properties that have received complaints. What complaints? I asked. You just spent 6 hours telling me these houses are perfect. Anonymous complaints require follow-up, he said, smiling like he'd won something. After they left, I called Jerome again. The observer was one of Whitmore's people, I told him. This whole thing was a setup. Figured as much. What did they find? Nothing. But they're scheduling follow-up inspections in 30 days. Harassment campaign. They're going to keep coming back until they find something or you get tired of dealing with it. I'm not getting tired of anything. Good, because it's about to get worse. He was right. Wednesday morning, I got a call from my insurance company. Someone had filed a claim saying I damaged their car in a parking lot and left the scene. They wanted me to come in for a statement. Wednesday afternoon, a process server showed up at my job site with papers for a civil suit. A woman claimed I'd harassed her at a gas station and was seeking damages for emotional distress. Wednesday evening, Tiana called. Someone's been asking questions about you at the hospital, she said. What kind of questions? About your character, your finances, your relationships? They're claiming to be doing a background check for a security clearance. I'm not applying for any security clearance. I know that, but some people don't. Thursday brought 3 more anonymous complaints to various city departments, fire code violations that didn't exist, zoning problems that were entirely fictional, environmental concerns based on nothing. Each complaint required a response. Each response took time and energy and documentation. It was death by 1,000 cuts, designed to wear me down and make me defensive. But it was also making me angry. Friday afternoon, I was in the basement of the downtown building, fixing a valve that had been acting up, when Maya appeared at the top of the stairs. You decent down there? Depends on your definition. She came down carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this. I took the coffee gratefully. What brings you by? Heard you've been having a rough week. Where'd you hear that? Small neighborhood. Word gets around when someone's being harassed by the city. She sat on a crate of spare parts and studied my face. You look tired. I am tired. But you're not backing down. No. Good. She sipped her coffee. For what it's worth, Mrs. Rodriguez thinks you walk on water. She's been telling everyone who'll listen that you're the best landlord she's ever had. She's good people. So are you, and people notice that. Maya left, but her words stayed with me. People notice. That was something Mr. Whitmore and his crowd had never learned. They thought power came from intimidation and money and the ability to make other people's lives difficult. But real power came from respect. And you earned respect by showing up, doing right by people, and standing for something that mattered. That evening, I made a decision. I called Jerome. I want to hire you for something else. What's that? I want you to investigate them. Richard Whitmore, his business dealings, his family. If they want to play dirty, I want to know what dirty looks like from their side. Malik, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I'm tired of being the only one playing by the rules. Jerome was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but if I find something, what are you planning to do with it? I don't know yet, but I want to have options. Saturday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Check your social media. I opened Facebook and found a post that had been shared dozens of times. It was a photo of me talking to Mrs. Rodriguez outside her house, but it had been cropped to make it look like we were standing closer than we actually were. The caption read, "Local slumlord intimidates tenant after housing violations discovered." The comments were brutal. People calling me a predator, demanding that I be investigated, sharing the post to neighborhood groups and housing rights organizations. Within an hour, The post had been shared 200 times. By that evening, it was over 1,000. But Sunday morning brought a surprise. I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. Someone had posted the uncropped version of the photo, along with a video that showed the entire conversation between me and Mrs. Rodriguez. In the video, she was clearly thanking me for something, not being intimidated. The new post included a comment from Mrs. Rodriguez herself. "This man is not a slumlord. He's the most honest landlord I've ever had. He fixes things fast, charges fair rent, and helped my son with his homework. Whoever posted that fake story should be ashamed." Other tenants started commenting. People from the neighborhood who knew me, workers from my job sites who'd seen me cover sick days and buy lunch for the crew. By noon, the original post had been taken down. By evening, Sash Truth Matters was trending in our city's social media, with dozens of people sharing stories about landlords and employers who actually cared about doing right by people. Monday morning, Jerome called with his first report. "Found something interesting about your ex-father-in-law," he said. "What's that?" His company, Whitmore Development, has been under federal investigation for the last 18 months. Bid rigging on municipal contracts. The investigation is ongoing, but it's serious enough that they've frozen some of his assets. I felt a piece of the puzzle click into place. So the family money isn't as secure as they pretend. Not even close. They're cash poor and asset heavy, which means they need to maintain their reputation to keep getting loans and contracts. A messy public divorce with a working class black man who turned out to be wealthier than they are? That's the kind of optics that could sink them. So, this isn't really about me. It's about you, but not because of who you are, because of what you represent. You're proof that their advantages aren't as valuable as they thought. After I hung up, I sat in my truck outside the coffee shop and thought about what Jerome had said. This had never been about Ava, or our marriage, or even my money. It was about power and who got to have it, and what happened when someone like me refused to stay in the place they'd assigned to me. For 3 years, I'd tried to earn their respect by playing their game, being grateful for invitations to parties where I was the only black face, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, pretending their casual racism was just thoughtlessness instead of malice. But respect couldn't be earned from people who didn't think you deserved it. It could only be demanded by people who knew their own worth. I was done trying to earn anything from them. It was time to demand what I'd always deserved. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. "Mr. Davis, it's Malik Carter. I want to schedule a meeting. It's time to finish this." The meeting with Mr. Davis was scheduled for Wednesday morning, but Tuesday night brought one more surprise. I was sitting on my couch reviewing the documentation Jerome had provided about Richard Whitmore's federal investigation when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw Tiana holding a manila folder. "What's this about?" I asked, letting her in. "Stop protecting the person who hurts you," she said, sliding the folder across my coffee table. Inside were printouts of text messages, screenshots of a group chat called Damage Control, with Ava, her father, Chase, and two people I didn't recognize. The messages went back 3 weeks. Ava: "He's not going to just disappear. We need a plan." Chase: "Make him look desperate. Poor guy suddenly gets money and thinks he can play with the big kids." Richard: "I've got people working on it. Housing violations, insurance claims, anything that sticks." Ava: "What if none of that works?" Richard: "Then we go nuclear. Character assassination. Paint him as the angry black man who can't handle rejection." Chase: "I've got contacts at 3 news outlets. One story about intimidation and harassment, and he's done." I read through the entire thread twice. My hands weren't shaking, but something cold was spreading through my chest. "How did you get these?" I asked. "Jessica's daughter works IT for Chase's company. She saw the messages when she was fixing his laptop. Thought you should know what you're dealing with." They were planning this from the beginning, from the moment they found out you weren't broke. Tiana sat beside me on the couch. The housing complaints, the fake accident report, the social media post, all of it was coordinated. I closed the folder and set it aside. What do you think I should do with this? Use it, show people who they really are. And then what? Start a war I can't win? Baby brother, you've already won. You just haven't realized it yet. Wednesday morning, I met with Mr. Davis at his office. I brought the folder Tiana had given me, along with Jerome's report about the federal investigation and a one-page statement I'd written the night before. Davis read everything carefully, making notes in the margins. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. "This changes everything," he said. "With this evidence, we could file harassment charges, sue for defamation, maybe even get the feds interested in obstruction charges. I don't want to do any of that. Excuse me? I don't want revenge. I don't want to destroy anybody. I just want them to leave me alone." Davis looked confused. "Malik, they tried to ruin your reputation, your business, your livelihood. You have every right. I have every right to a lot of things. But rights aren't the same as needs." I picked up the one-page statement I'd written. "I want you to read this into the record at the final hearing. After that, we're done." He read the statement, then looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "This is it? This is all you want to do?" "This is enough." The final hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. I spent Thursday at work, focusing on normal problems with simple solutions. A broken air conditioner at the Riverside building, a clogged drain at the downtown location, a tenant at one of my rental properties who needed help moving a refrigerator. Real problems, fixable problems, problems that didn't require lawyers or private investigators or psychological warfare. That evening, Maya stopped by my apartment with takeout from the Chinese place down the street. "Thought you might be too nervous to cook," she said. "I'm not nervous." "No? You look like a man getting ready for battle." "Maybe I am." We ate on my couch, watching a cooking show and not talking about divorce or harassment campaigns or family wars. It was the first normal hour I'd had in weeks. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said during a commercial. "Sure. What's this really about for you? Not the money or the legal stuff? What's it about?" I thought about her question while some chef on TV explained how to make perfect risotto. "Dignity," I said finally. "For 3 years, I let them make me feel small. Let them treat me like I should be grateful for scraps from their table. I'm done with that." "Good," she said. "You deserve better." "We all do." Friday morning, I put on my best suit, not the one I'd worn to the courthouse 3 weeks ago, but the navy blue one I'd bought for job interviews 5 years ago. It was simple, clean, and entirely mine. The courthouse hallway was crowded. Ava was there with her father and Mrs. Peterson. Chase was notably absent. Judge Ramirez's clerk called us into the courtroom at exactly 9 o'clock. The final hearing was supposed to be routine: signatures, final division of assets, official dissolution of the marriage, but Mr. Davis had requested permission to read a statement into the record. "Mr. Carter," Judge Ramirez said, "you have something you'd like to share?" I stood up and pulled the folded paper from my jacket pocket. My hands were steady. "Yes, Your Honor." I unfolded the statement and began to read. 3 years ago, I married someone I thought I knew. I believed that love and hard work could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, heal any wound. I was wrong about the healing part, but I wasn't wrong about love and hard work. During our marriage, I was often made to feel that I should be grateful for acceptance into a world where my background, my education, and my profession were seen as limitations rather than strengths. I was encouraged to see myself through eyes that found me lacking, incomplete, in need of improvement. I accepted that treatment because I believed it came from a place of love. I now understand that love without respect is not love at all. Over the past month, I have been the target of a coordinated campaign designed to damage my reputation and my livelihood. False complaints were filed against my properties. Fabricated stories were spread on social media. My character and my integrity were questioned by people who never bothered to know either. I could respond to these attacks with attacks of my own. I have the evidence and the legal standing to do so. But I choose not to because I refuse to become the person they accused me of being. Instead, I want to say this. I am Malik Carter. I fix things that are broken. I honor my commitments, and I treat people with the respect they deserve regardless of their circumstances. I built my wealth through honest work and careful planning. I take care of the people who depend on me. I show up when I say I will. That is enough. That has always been enough, and I will never again allow anyone to convince me otherwise. To my ex-wife, I forgive you, not because you've asked for forgiveness, but because carrying anger toward you would diminish who I choose to be. To her family and friends, your approval was never necessary for my success, and your disapproval will not define my future. I wish everyone in this room peace, prosperity, and the wisdom to treat others as they would want to be treated. Thank you, Your Honor. I folded the paper and sat down. The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Ramirez cleared her throat. Thank you, Mr. Carter. That was unusually gracious. She went through the final formalities: signatures, asset division, dissolution decree. It took 15 minutes to officially end what had taken 3 years to build. In the hallway afterward, Ava approached me one last time. Malik, there's nothing left to say, Ava. Take care of yourself. Mr. Whitmore was standing near the elevators, talking urgently into his phone. Something about damage control and media strategy. He looked older than he had 3 weeks ago, like the weight of his secrets was starting to show. I walked past him toward the courthouse steps. He didn't try to stop me. Outside, the October sun was bright and warm. I stood on the steps for a moment, breathing clean air and feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed. A text from Tiana. How did it go? I typed back. It's finished. Good or bad finished? Good. Definitely good. That afternoon, I went back to work. There was a heating problem at the Riverside building that needed attention, and Mrs. Rodriguez had called about a leaky faucet that was driving her crazy. Normal problems. Fixable problems. The kind I was good at solving. 2 weeks later, I was checking the boiler in the basement of the downtown building when Tommy found me. Boss, you got a visitor upstairs? I climbed to the lobby and found Maya waiting with 2 cups of coffee and a newspaper tucked under her arm. Thought you might want to see this, she said, handing me the paper. The headline read, Federal Investigation Widens into Municipal Contract Fraud. Below it was a photo of Richard Whitmore being escorted from his office by FBI agents. Sounds like someone's having a worse day than a broken boiler, Maya said. I read the article. The investigation had been ongoing for 2 years, but new evidence had accelerated the timeline. Whitmore Development was facing charges of bid rigging, bribery, and tax evasion. Richard Whitmore himself was being held without bail. Did you have anything to do with this? Maya asked. No, but I'm not surprised. Why not? Because people who think they're above the rules usually are breaking them somewhere. That evening, Jerome called with an update. The feds picked up Whitmore this morning. Word is, someone tipped them off about some financial irregularities that moved their timeline up. Someone? Anonymous tip to their hotline. Very detailed information about offshore accounts and falsified documents. I didn't ask for more details. Sometimes justice found its own way. 3 months later, I was replacing a water heater at 847 Elm Street when Mrs. Rodriguez's son, Carlos, came home from school. Mr. Malik, guess what? What's that, Carlos? I got accepted to the engineering program at State, full scholarship. I put down my wrench and shook his hand. That's incredible, son. Your mom must be so proud. She cried for like an hour, but good crying, you know? I know. Carlos helped me finish installing the water heater, asking questions about pipe fittings and electrical connections. He was curious about everything, always wanting to understand how things worked. Mr. Malik, can I ask you something? Sure. My mom says you used to be married to a rich lady who treated you bad. Is that true? I thought about how to answer that. It's true that I was married to someone whose family had a lot of money, and it's true that the marriage didn't work out. Because she was mean to you? Because we wanted different things out of life. Do you miss her? I miss who I thought she was, but I don't miss who she actually was. Carlos nodded, like that made perfect sense. My dad was like that. I miss the dad I wanted him to be, but not the dad he really was. Kids understood things differently than adults. More honestly, sometimes. That weekend, I was working in the small garden behind my building when Maya appeared with a bag of groceries. Making dinner, she announced. Hope you like pasta. I love pasta. Good, because I already bought the wine. We cooked together in my small kitchen, talking about everything and nothing, her plans to expand the coffee shop, my idea to start a small construction company focused on affordable housing, the book she was reading about sustainable farming, normal conversation, easy conversation. After dinner, we sat on my couch drinking wine and watching the sunset through my living room window. Can I tell you something? Maya said. Sure. The first time I saw you with your ex-wife, I knew it wouldn't last. Why? Because she never looked at you the way you looked at her. She looked at you like you were something she was working on, a project. You looked at her like she hung the moon. And now? She smiled and set down her wine glass. Now you look at yourself like you know who you are. That's much better. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Ava's handwriting. Malik, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to say this. You were right about everything. About love and respect. About who I was when I thought nobody important was watching. About the costume I made you wear to fit into my world. My father goes to trial next month. The family business is gone. Most of our friends stopped calling when the headlines started. Chase moved to California without saying goodbye. I'm working now. Real work at a marketing firm downtown. Small clients, honest work. I'm learning what it feels like to earn something instead of inheriting it. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I hope you're happy. Ava. I read the letter twice, then put it in the box with our wedding photos and other memories I wasn't ready to throw away but didn't need to look at every day. She was right about one thing. I was happy. A year later, I was driving through the old Whitmore neighborhood on my way to look at a potential investment property when I saw her. Ava was standing at a bus stop, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, checking her phone like anyone else waiting for the public transportation. For a moment, I thought about stopping, asking how she was doing, maybe offering her a ride. Instead, I slowed down as I passed, long enough for her to look up and see my face through the window. Our eyes met for maybe 3 seconds. She didn't wave, and neither did I. But there was something in her expression that looked like understanding. I kept driving toward my appointment, toward my future, toward the life I'd built on my own terms. In my rearview mirror, I watched her get smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. Some endings aren't about reconciliation or revenge or dramatic gestures. Sometimes the deepest victory is simply moving forward with dignity intact, building something better in the space where pain used to live. I'd learned to love my life exactly as it was. Honest work with people I respected, investments that provided good homes for good families, and the quiet satisfaction that came from knowing I'd never again settle for love without respect. Maya and I had been talking about marriage lately, taking it slow, building something real on a foundation of mutual respect and shared values. She understood who I was and where I came from, and she loved those things instead of trying to fix them. That was enough. That was everything. The morning sun caught my windshield as I pulled into the parking lot of the building I was considering purchasing. It was in a neighborhood that reminded me of Riverside 5 years ago, tired but hopeful, full of potential for someone willing to invest time and care. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at the building and thinking about all the families who might live there someday. Good families who deserved safe, affordable homes, children who might need help with homework, mothers who worked 2 jobs and deserved landlords who fixed things quickly and fairly. My phone buzzed. A text from Tiana. "Proud of you, baby brother." I typed back, "Proud of myself, too." And for the first time in longer than I could remember, that was completely true. I got out of the truck, straightened my tie, and walked toward my future with my head held high. Behind me, the city hummed with the sounds of people going about their lives, working, hoping, building something better for tomorrow. I was proud to be part of that symphony. I was proud to be exactly who I was. And that was the quietest, most complete victory of all. The end.